AI is a profoundly difficult film, not least because it's unclear what came from Spielberg and what came from Kubrick. Spielberg corrected the critics who mistook the ending to be Spielberg's invention when it in actuality was Kubrick's, but I can't understand how those critics made that mistake in the first place. The ending is clearly Kubrickian. Something about these higher beings creating a familiar space for this creature they've unearthed certainly recalls 2001, wouldn't you say? No matter, the film is still very much a Spielberg film, even though it's hard to know to exactly what degree Spielberg tried to emulate Kubrick's pre-production work, and to what degree he allowed himself to deviate from it. Apparently Spielberg kept pretty close to the existing version of the screenplay, but made
hundreds of changes, nevertheless.
In his own version. I'd love to know what they are, but most importantly, Spielberg himself expressed it like this.
The hard thing about making AI, I didn't want to lose myself and just slave and service Stanley's vision. I had to put as much of myself in this project as I could to also make it worth my while, because this wasn't a charity case. I wasn't doing this for charity.
By this, he makes it clear that he realized the necessity of making the project his own, and he definitely succeeded. The result is probably one of his finest films, containing some of his profoundest imagery. He revisits images from his previous work, like the child imitating the parent at the table from Jaws, or the enraptured face watching another child being told a story from E.T. By the context of this story, these images are newly charged with irony, and this irony may be the film's greatest strength, and in a way its least Spielbergian trait. In Jaws, the child imitating Brody at the table subtly conveys the child wanting to become closer to the distant father, who at first is unaware of being imitated. But in AI, the irony of this is enhanced by the robot child being unable to eat, therefore being even unable to correctly imitate the parent. In E.T., and Elliot gazing at Drew Barrymore believing in the fairy tale subtly conveys a sense of fading innocence. In AI, this is turned to irony in that the robot child, who is supposed to be unable to believe, is the one believing in Pinocchio, while at the same time being passed over for the human child, who doesn't believe. This irony makes the film uneasy and unnerving to watch, but also captivating. One of Spielberg's grandest images comes when David, played to a kind of uncanny perfection by Haley Joel Osment, reaches his manufacturing place in New York and looks into the mask of himself. The loaded symbolism of this is hard to unpack, the symbols of faces, eyes, sight, and doubling all intertwining. The existential nature of it is almost like Bergman, you know what I mean? I wonder if Spielberg invented these images. My suspicion is he did, and in any case, he was the one who realized them. What is ultimately most Spielbergian about the movie, as opposed to Kubrickian perhaps, is the deep sympathy it has for its poor robots, and the accompanying fear it has for its humans. The film's final irony is, of course, that the robots are more human than the humans.
The most lasting proof of their genius.
As the film beautifully and somewhat mournfully puts it. Minority Report, another one of my favorite Spielbergs, continues imagining dark futures, but applies an even greater realism to the endeavor. Spielberg basically asked a team of scientists to accurately predict what the future was going to be like, and they were mostly kind of right. It is a model in terms of world building. It always looks more like the present day than it looks like sci-fi, which is a fantastically good idea, and I can't really think of any other film that really feels like it in that respect. You can see traces of its influence in other stuff, but it still seems pretty unique to me. More importantly, it's almost entirely visual. We learn what these things are, or these, simply by looking at how they work, and it's brilliant entertainment. This entire chase basically amounts to a sci-fi Indiana Jones, and I love it so much. There's a general sense of experimentation going on here, and all throughout Spielberg's post-9/11 period, which to me produces some of his finest and most intriguing work. The bleached quality of the cinematography makes it seem both ominous and oddly beautiful, and the self-destructive intensity of Tom Cruise adds a very attractive edge to Spielberg's sentiment. My favorite scene might be the one where Cruise is just obsessively looking at his home videos, reciting all the words.
Gotta keep running.
Gotta keep running. Gotta keep running.
There's a sense of not being able to stop running that reoccurs all throughout this latter stage of Spielberg's work, and that probably says something of his mindset at the time. I find it deeply relatable, as I do Spielberg's next movie.